Hello and welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Buy Round interview show. Today I'm joined by a man who we are going to have so much to cover. A man with over 50 years in professional rugby league, also a fellow UK citizen.
Yes, mate. Yeah.
Tim Sheens, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Jimmy.
It's great to have you on. Thank you for fitting us in. It's always a busy time of year. I thought, you must have the bye this week, but you're preparing for the Melbourne Storm, so we do appreciate. We do appreciate it.
No, it's okay.
How's life back being an NRL coach?
Yeah, I should have punched myself in the face before I got involved again. I came back to be an administrator and to help the club and finalise a lot of, because I'm now a British citizen, as is my wife. We're looking to go back to England, so I came over to finalise lots of my stuff here in Australia and so on. So and then things weren't going well for us last year, and the club approached me about the system of possibly something like technically the Wayne Bennett system of carry a young bloke and push him into the system, and the DNA of Benji Marshall and Robbie Farah was talked about by Lee and Justin. So they offered it to me and it appealed to me. So I thought, I'll have a go, and 2 more years back at it. So
only 2 or
2 years of coaching, and then 1 year back in the role I was in, which was the director of rugby.
So when you get approached and you put the pros and cons on the scales,
yes,
like what is it that what were in the pros column? What was the attraction?
Well, I think
like after all you've done,
yeah. Well, it's probably just getting the club on the right path. I came over to do pathways. I'm very big on giving juniors opportunity, young blokes. We built the 05 to 10 and 11 and 12, where 10 and 11 we made top 4. We sort of built to 05 and then rebuilt to 12. I like doing that type of thing. I think I'm reasonably good at it. Is finding the right young talent, grooming them through with their skills and things, and then giving them opportunities. So Benji and Robbie are 2 great examples. They're both under 20 when they were 18 and 19 and played first grade. So, but you have to have a senior group around that type of thing too. So, just getting that balance right. So it was put to me to bring Benji and Robbie through. Benji in particular is anointed as the coach. Whether Robbie likes administration too, so I'm not sure whether or not he'll be. His aspects will be to go to be CEO, I think, something like that. No, they and so just getting involved with the club and having been there for 6 or 8 months, just seeing what was going on, in my role as director, and seeing where we were going with our pathways. There's some brilliant kids coming through the club, and so if I can help for the next 2 years. To get Benji to a point where he can run with it, and he'll do the 3 years after that. So it's a good 5-year system without the turnover. Jimmy, when you turn a coach over, the next coach says, they're not the players I want. Mind you, they bite your arm off to get the job with the players that are there, but they reorganise the salary cap, they reorganise the playing group, and so on. And so it's a major rollover and a cost to the club in big times, paying players out and so on. So this won't happen. There's no player in the club over this next year or two, for me this year and next year, that will be at the club that Benji doesn't want.
Yeah.
And no staff members either. Everyone, the current staff is his staff.
Yeah.
Right. He'll carry that staff for 5 years. So the club, it should be a nice smooth transition, and that'll certainly help the club and the younger ones, given the opportunity over these next couple of years under me, and then Benji in his first year. There'll still be a fairly young squad we'll have in 25, but it's a squad that's going to go places, in my opinion.
Like, with all that said, like, what's behind your drive? Because that's you've painted a picture there, but we know there's going to be media to answer to. Yeah. There's high stress. Yeah. Insanely high workload, sleepless nights. Like, what is it about what's in you behind the drive to go after all you've achieved. You've been over to England to come back, and then you've got this UK citizenship and this, I imagine a fantastic 25 years of travel in front of you, maybe.
I hope so. That'd be nice. Although I don't think I'll be. I think in my 90s, mate, I'll be in a bit of trouble. But no,
wherever. Well, you're going to be cutting into that time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I am at the moment.
So what's the internal drive for you?
Well, I love the game. I love coaching to start with.
Comes from a place of love.
I love. You've got to love it because. It can drive you crazy. Like, we lost our first 7 games. That is pressure. And being able to handle that and stay the course, is very, very important. And lots of club officials can't, lots of clubs can't, lots of coaches can't. It's about staying the course and then beating Penrith for our first win. And then we've got steadier, better and better. We've been in good form. And I digress here a bit, sorry, but we've been in good form, but we haven't always had the wins. But you've got to be in form. You've got to have the stats on the board. You've got to be making yards. You've got to be defending well and so on to win games. So all those close ones are the ones that hurt the most. Losing. The Canberra game, for instance, on a poor call from the referee. That type of thing. They're the things that hurt you, but that's football, and I'm old enough and ugly enough, Jimmy, to be able to handle that. Benji's learning that, and I'm taking a lot of that pressure off him. So at the moment, he's coaching, pure coaching. That's all he's doing. Right?
Like, are we talking X's and O's, skill acquisition?
Everything, mate. He's running the team, basically. He and Rob and Dave Ferner, who's doing the defence. So Benji's running the offence. Robbie's running offence and defence in get-out sets. Like, he works hard with the ruck players, the middles. So it's working pretty well. But
still, for you, are you attracted to the chaos of coaching?
Oh yeah.
Like, what are you like when you're not? What are you like in an off season when on a quiet day? Are you hating that? Are you like? Do you almost prefer dealing with a loss than dealing with nothing, or dealing sitting on a beach somewhere?
No, I'm gone past sitting on a beach. No, I enjoy the work. I enjoy getting up early. I enjoy the late hours, the ups and the downs of the game. I mean, I was lucky enough to be put in as a full-time coach in my very first gig at Penrith in 1984, and I think I was the first full-time coach in Sydney. There are lots of coaches. Jack Gibson, for instance, had his own businesses and didn't really have to. When I say work, he had that. The Roy Masters was a school teacher. There was all these sorts of things. But I was put in as a full-time coach with part-time players. And
is that when you first started?
1984,
that was the situation.
Very first, yeah. Of course it was, mate. We're all work and play in those days.
Yeah.
Because full-time didn't come into 97. You're talking about Super League was 97. So I had. So I'm sitting in my little office doing all the planning. No S&C staff, no physios, no nothing. So I put it all together, and the boys would come in at 5 o'clock and we'd train. So 3 days a week. But Roger Cowan, who was the CEO at Penrith at the time, he gave me what he called a manager title. It wasn't coach; it was manager. He loved the football thing in England. The rugby. Sorry, I can't say soccer, can I? But I just did. But football.
That's all right.
Football manager, and so I did all the recruitment, all the paperwork, the lot. So I had my secretary, and away we went. So they gave me a good skill background when it did go full time, because I'd been full time from '84. Yeah,
you touched on there about this time at the Tigers. It seems like it's very different from any other coaching setup that you've had. Can you just talk to us about this rare approach and how it all works, and are the roles defined? You cross paths. You said that Benji's doing a lot of the X's and O's, and then you're more taking the pressure off. And I think debate is healthy.
Yeah,
people, media would say, "Oh, they've had a fallout," but I don't view that as a negative headline. I think I think that's good. You should be. You should have difference of opinion.
Benj has his opinion, I have mine, but we've never had a fallout in that regard at all. Since we've started together on this little journey, but he has his own opinion, as was Rob and David. I mean, the defensive coach gets the problems of a coach changing players and changing systems. All of a sudden, his edge is broken to pieces because he's worked hard to get them to combine, and then you move the 5'8" to the other side, or you change it, or you do whatever, So David gets the short end of the straw all the time, but because Benji, like me and Rob to a degree, are focused on offense, as that's probably our primary enjoyment in the game. And I mean, people jump up and down when people score, as these days they go ridiculous in the in goal. They don't sort of jump up and down although later on you celebrate the fact that you held them off the line for, say, 3 sets of 6 in a row, and that type of thing. It's a balance, but yeah, no, I find it with Benj. I look at it as he's an apprentice, and of course he won the Apprentice thing, didn't he? And Rob the same, but Benji in particular. So I've got to push him out there. Lots of the ideas that we're using at the moment are his, right? I give him a lot of credit for, I'll take responsibility for the losses, I suppose, but, we've had the 3 wins and some close games over the last couple of 6 or 7 weeks where we've been pretty decent. He's always he's in there running with them. He runs the plays, the opposition plays, the 13 on 13. We do a lot of it training these days, of course, with the numbers we can have. He's in there with the younger blokes running the plays against the first grade that the opposition are going to run, what they like on the left side, what they like on the right side, and so on. So he's full on. I mean, he could play.
Yeah, because he's not that far out the game, is he?
So no, he's not.
He'll jump in at training, but can you talk us through the decision-making process? So whether it be recruitment, selection, game plan.
Yep. Okay.
Is there a fixed process, or is it?
Yeah,
are we
it
unanimous?
is. It's getting there. It's getting there. No. Tim gets the final call on a selection. For instance, AJ Kapawa going into the second row was my call, and I won out there. He's a sort of back row centre now that we can use, which is handy to have in the game, so you don't always have to carry an outside back if you've got him as a back rower. Stafford Tower into 6 is something that I've pushed, and the boys are right on it. He's going okay at the moment, so we've got no choice anyway with losing 3/4 of our spine in these last few weeks, or this year, particularly with Adam gone as well, Adam Dewey. So those sorts of things I still have a say in, and if there's an argument in the group about this, that, and the other thing, and there often is, everyone has an opinion, I make the final call.
Yeah.
Because still at first grade coach, I'm still the coach, and at the end of the day, I'm going to get blamed one way or another. So I want to be sure. But I am listening to the boys, because if you don't, then they're not apprentices. You're just giving them shovel that dirt into the bin. They're not actually fixing the, as an apprentice, doing something positive and doing something to improve themselves towards the end of their apprenticeship. Really, from the point of view of the boys, they have a major say with selections as well. There's some arguments there, but overall, very few. It's usually to the positive, not the negative. We're not arguing that bloke can't play or anything. It's just a matter of why you think something, why I think something, particularly when it comes down to the bench and that type of thing, where it's so important to have the balance right with your team, particularly with a lot of younger guys in the squad who have got less than 30 games, let alone 50 games.
Yeah, well, I think some people, think negativity is or disagreement is unhealthy, but if it's not, if you don't have disagreement, it just becomes a dictatorship.
Yeah,
like you're just
that's right.
And like you say, they're not learning anything.
No, well, the club has appointed me to to bring Benji through as a coach.
Yeah.
So my aim is to give him as much opportunity to do so. If he really wants something with a selection, he gets it. I'll back away.
Right. Okay.
If he really wants something because he sees something, and we're talking about, say, a 22-year-old here who'll be in his system, or an 18-year-old that'll be in his system in 2 years' time, then I'll give him that opportunity, no problem. Yeah.
So with that in mind, when you took on this role, did you have to reset your way of thinking, because this is such a rare situation? Do you know what I mean? Because it's not the
no.
If you were given the reins after Maguire to come in, I can only assume that your approach would be very different to what it is now. So how much reframing of a situation did
question.
you need to think
it's
about before you?
Probably something in progress, Jimmy, I think, because we're only halfway through our first season. We've had a really rough start, but it's improved, and now we're going to be in real trouble with losing. We've only got one spine member left of where we started in the start of the year, and that's not easy to just go find replacements at the moment. So we've got to manufacture a couple of things there until we've 4 to 6 weeks before we see Brooks or Appy back. So that's going to be our season. If we don't have something happen now in the next 6 weeks, there'll be no top 8. And no chance of even squeaking in. So it's a really tough time for us this next 4 to 6 weeks. But the group's really focused. They're a great group. I have to say, the morale has never waned. Even when we're 7 losses, it never waned at all, not once. But our confidence was always down a touch. If you we were starting well, all of a sudden they'd get a ball, score, off a kick or something like that, and you'd see the heads go down a touch, but not to the point of I think it was just Brisbane who put a score on us, 15-5 penalty count, and playing up there, and they're a good side, and we had everything that could go wrong went wrong, but other than that, I think we've tested every side.
Well, again, part of I can only just thinking that part of Benji's apprenticeship, and you probably lose sight of this as a coach, that you will face times where 2 of your spine go down, and then watch another spine member go down this weekend.
That's right.
And then Dewey's already down.
He's down.
So
he's done till well into next year.
Yeah. So there's 3. Like, how do you deal with that? An experience that when you're in this role that Benji's in now, as opposed to a usual assistant.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
gaining experience for what is to come, right?
You bet it is. You bet it is, Jimmy. And he understands that. We sit there in the coaches' room. We have a room where all the coaches are. I've got my own office, but they can have their own stinky little room. And of course, on the whiteboard is your teams and so on, and who's available, who's injured, who's not training today, and so on and so on. So that changes so often. It's not funny. But he is learning the processes of, we've got to find the next man up. Now, the next man up might not be the man that's good enough to play. So our lower grades are still developing as well. So our first grade side's young, so you can imagine our younger grades. It's not always easy. Just go, there's a halfback in reserve grade, bring him straight up, no problem. There's a front rower and so on. And professional sport, days gone by, you could throw a younger guy in. Like I threw Mark Geyer in at 17, Greg Alexander at 18. I can't remember the number of kids that have played in their teens in teams that I've played with, coached. So, that doesn't always work if you haven't got the core of good players around them as well.
But you run the risk of ruining that career, don't you? If you go in too early.
Mark Geyer, great story. I'll tell you a quick story. He hurt his knee. He was 17, right, 6'3" and 17, and aggressive. And I put him in with a young Johnny Cartwright into the back row at Penrith, and Greg Alexander was running around 18, and Roy Simmons was shaking his head, just trying to. He was running the game from 9. He said, "I'll take the team to field position. You guys do the rest." Right. So he'd run the ball that way because they had no idea about that type of thing. So, but Mark hurt his knee. Anyway, we sent him to a specialist, and the specialist said, look, you've got to be careful here. His growth plates aren't complete. They're not sealed over, or closed, whatever the terminology is. And I said, he's 6'3". He said, yeah, he'll be 2 more inches taller by the time he's 21 or 22, right? And sure enough, he was. Ended up 6'5". Now, what those sorts of things teach you is hell, you got to. It's just because he's a big kid and he's 17, we'll throw him in. There's all sorts of things I've learned along the way that you got to be really careful in that area. He was full on, as MG is, full on in everything he did, and those long gangly legs were a target, in days gone by. So, plus the other garbage that was in the game in those days, in scrums and off the ball and stuff like that. It's taught me. Benji did 5 shoulder surgeries. So you got to be careful when you throw them in a bit young in the sport today, where the guys are more muscled, more conditioned, better prepared. Like 3 days a week in the old days, as I said, the work play. Tuesday was a bash up, then go to the pub. Thursday was ball work, and Saturday was captain's run. Now, and I remember when I was in the game when captain's run, they said, "You're kidding? We're going to do a third session." Like on Saturday, we're working because guys works on Saturday. Yeah, because in the old days it was always a Sunday game. Yeah, everyone played Sunday.
A lot of our, we just thought you're born, you grow up, and you fall into what it is, right? And you forget that that's what it was. I can just imagine. I've never even thought about that, but the uproar of we're training on a Saturday, coach. Yeah, like what do you want from us?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, there was a major blow up, and there was no Players Association, just that the players themselves, because they used to work. And then you had, you only had one game on the Saturday, the ABC game, and everyone else played Sunday. So, it was 7-day turnarounds.
I can just imagine what those dressing rooms are like. Yeah. Just like, have you seen what coach is doing? Yeah. And can I ask, because we will go back a little bit, but just while at the top of my mind, was that like everyone got on board straight away, or you'd notice what? Because sometimes what happens is one club will bring it in, then everyone, it's that contagion effect.
For a while, and it still happens today when you go to bush football. I played a year in the bush when I finished at Campbelltown Group 6. Guys who were on shift work couldn't come. They just didn't come. So you just had as a coach, you just had to say, righto, he'll be here for game. And so because I remember Noel Kelly tells a story, rest his soul. He used to be a butcher and he worked on Saturdays and he wasn't training Saturdays. That was it, right? But there are a lot of hard men in those days too, hard work, and we're fairly conditioned that way. It's like in England with the mines, I had a bit of time there with
that
boys.
Was their that was their full-time train.
Yeah, that's right. Australia went past England when they got into weights and England didn't bother. The men were they're working their backsides off in the mines. Yeah. You couldn't get much tougher than that in real terms, because it wasn't just working down in the mines. It was hard stress on body and mind. But so what the game is today is they're so physical because they're so full time, and they're training really tough long hours, and they're on GPS at game time. Like we trained the whole preseason on game and ahead of game performances by way of GPS. Turnarounds of 1 minute, not 3 minutes to have a chat to the players or 5 minutes to get a drink of water. It was 1 minute turnarounds, which is what you get in a game. A scrum, you maybe get a minute break to walk. A tap play, you'll get a minute to walk. Maybe 2 or 3 minutes from a conversion, like a kick. So kept them really, really short. And so the guys are so well conditioned today that a young guy can get hurt big time.
Yeah.
Even though there's no stupid stuff in the game these days to any great degree, but they hit harder, they run harder. The 10 metres also, when it was 5 in the old days, you see you didn't get as much gallop up, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
These days, it's 10 metres, so they're coming hard.
You reach a greater speed.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. And of course, the Indigenous and Islander boys are big and strong, that's added another dimension to the game as well in this country.
So this is obviously looking at situations that will come up throughout Benji's career that you're sort of helping him and assisting with. That it's it's not necessarily next man up.
No.
There's more complexities
That's
to
right.
let's just use the 7 from he's got a potentially bright future, or you're potentially a 50 to 100 game NRL player.
Yeah.
He's a potential 300 gamer, whatever it may be. But there's more to just go, okay, well, we've had a disruption to our spine.
That's right.
Or a middle forward, for example. It's like, well, is he ready to be put in now?
That's
We
right.
might just have to wait
or do you
and go.
break his career,
Or do we go, well, this guy's 22 in the reserve grade. Let's put him in to do that job. And then also, I guess, managing the disappointment from that person who's thinking, well, hang on, they were telling me I've got a bright future, but yet this other guy's jumped me.
There's a lot of that in the game, Jimmy. There's a lot of that in the game. The young blokes today are ready to go, and they think they're ready to go. And if you give them a pre-season, and we had a fairly decent, like 40-odd plus training pre-season, everyone was keen to play first grade, right? And, of course, you see the odd young lad. We've got 3 in the side at the moment that are flag age, under 21. That's young Pole, the lock forward.
Is he under 21?
Yeah. Junior Tupu and Jareem, right? They can all play flag this year if we wanted to. So realistically, that's an early age for them. But in saying that, the other kids then, if you give them one game or you put them in the top 22 named every week, they get a little bit ahead of themselves sometimes. But what they've got to realise is that every player in grade has a CV to kill for. You don't make grade unless you've got a good CV.
Yeah.
I remember as a young guy, I walked out of Penrith because I'd been captain and picked in every team I'd ever played in as a kid. And then I remember it was 3 grades graded. You played trials, you got graded. I got graded in the 52 players, right, that were made up the 3 sides. Third side was open age, 3rd grade. And I was looking, and they used to put the white, blue and yellow sheets up on the wall so that boys would come on Tuesday, have a look to see what team you're in, right? So I'm looking, and I'm looking in the 3rd grade, hoping to be there. No, maybe I'm in 2nd grade. No, I couldn't be in 1st grade. I went back, and there's 17 reserves, and there was my name on the bottom of the list. 17 reserves, and I'm down the bottom, right? So I went to the coach, and I said, I remember Mick Kelly, a lovely bloke, and I said, Mick, coach, I'm reserve 17, so I wasn't going to get a game. There's no 17 reserves on the bench. Although in those days you could carry in many, I've seen so many different variations. You could carry as many as you want, but once you use 4, you couldn't use any more.
Yeah, right.
Those sort of things. So, but he said, "Who do you think you are?" I said, "Well, I'll tell you what I am. I'm not here." Then I walked out, went and played rugby union for a year with my mates. Came back the year after, but that lesson taught me that the young lads today don't understand when they come to grade and then they're told you're weak in an area that they've never been told. The junior coaches have a lot to answer for in many ways because they don't. The good kid, just sheer strong and run, he can't pass much, but he runs over people, so they don't school him to do anything else. And that's something that I'm big on. But so, most of the kids today really, in today's generation, and I've been through some generations, Jimmy, with them, they just expect to be there and they think they're good enough. And then they're told, listen, you've got a problem with your defence, because that's the biggest thing that burns most of them. They're all identified on offence, nearly all. There's not too many Terry Randalls run around, that they're just dynamic in defence, and obviously, one of Terry's strengths was that. So, then they get, I'm on the bench, and then, hell, I'm not even picked in the team, or I'm down a grade. They're lucky to be still playing, but they don't see it that way. They want to go higher and higher.
Yeah, I am going to look at that pathway plan for you guys, but that's another area that Benji needs to be aware of, because the common things I used to hear out the dressing room when former players would become coaches is like they forgot what it's like,
Mm.
and you know this,
Yeah.
But you as a head coach have got a large number of issues happening, areas of focus,
Yeah.
and then you can forget that's what it's like as how to manage the younger generation.
That's true.
We know that they change and,
Yeah.
and they receive information differently.
Oh,
they
hell yeah.
receive feedback differently, and they don't necessarily put the head coach's comments or feedback on the pedestal that it should. They probably value what peers say and people that they don't even know.
Yeah, it's
say.
interesting. Most of the guys I've ever worked with, it's interesting how they'll say, "Hi, coach." That's what they'll say to me. "Hi, coach." "Yeah, coach." And this is players way back in the day, but today it's "Hey, Sheensy," or and I don't mind as long as it's not shithead. But it's a bit different, And of course today you've got a whole heap of assistant coaches. In my day it was first grade, second grade, third grade coach. In most of my career you've just had and each coach had a team, and I picked my team. Second grade coach picked his team, and I'd have a bit of a say. The third grade coach or 23's coach or 21's coach, 20's coach. They've had all the different ranges of in that third team. Over the many years I've coached, and he gets what's left. Although if it was an age team, he got the younger ones, right? So the attitude of the players, and I don't mind. I'm not formal at all. I wouldn't blow up if someone didn't address me a way I wanted to be addressed.
It is interesting though that, and I've only just realised it. So, like, hey coach, coach, and then. Yeah, I've come across younger players just like, hey, or I'd call the coach the gaffer. Hey, gaff, like in charge. Coach, gaffer.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like it's funny that is it a power thing? Is it a I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know, and I'm not gonna
No. I don't know what
say
the answer
that you've got to earn it or something, but there's a bit of that. But Benj is, at the moment, assistant coaches are always the most popular coaches because they're not seen by the players as picking them or cutting them from the club or whatever, or dealing on their contracts. And salary cap these days, obviously, is a big issue in as far as coaches are concerned as well, to be involved. So, but assistant coaches are all about helping you go up a level, right? And help your defence or help your attack or help you in this area and that. So, we're lucky in this regard. David does defence and has been he's played backs when he was younger and he's a forward. So he works overall with both groups. Robbie does the middles and he's very good at it, and the nines. Appy has really learned a lot from Robbie, because Robbie was a different type of hooker. He would go lateral, and I'd let him play lateral like a halfback rather than just follow the middle, off a quick play the ball. And Benji, of course, has played in the backs, so, the outside backs and everything, he works really strongly with them. So they're getting a cross-section from your coaching staff, and I've got a couple of other assistants and specialists who come in as well. Chrissy Hyington's working with us. Paddy Richards is working with us. So, and I do get people coming and going, to help out. So, they don't see the coach as the main guy until he is the main guy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So there's still that sort of aspect in the kids' psyche these days. It's interesting in that respect, but that doesn't mean they're not respected. But like Benji's in running around getting tackled by him, right?
Yeah, and in 2 years' time.
And Robbie was too in pre-season.
In 2 years' time he's going to be...
In 2 years' time he's going to be, you're out, you're in. See you later, you're out of the club even, you know. And although he's involved in that, we have a 2:30 today, we have a selection meeting, a recruitment meeting, get it right, Tim. We have a committee that involves Benji and I, and recruitment and CEO a board member and that sort of thing. It really talks about it's the recruitment and so on and so on, right? Anyway, so we have that once a week. Benji and I will be there today, and he has a major say in what goes on because most of the players we talk about now extending, for instance, are going to be extended into his era, or who we're buying is going to be someone that's involved with him. I could buy someone next year and say, I want him, I don't care, Benj, I'll put him on a year and go with him, and that's not going to worry him. But there'll be no one that he going into his time, so he has complete control of that. And I tell you what, he knows his salary cap, he's got his figures, he knows what the boys are on, he knows what's a fair deal, what we can and can't afford. And that's a smart thing because coaches today should be and are up to speed with salary cap.
Yeah.
You can't rely on people telling you, yeah, you're right, because it doesn't always work out that way. So it impacts your job if they get it wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh no, most definitely.
Yes.
And it can hamper a club
Hell
for
yeah.
a very, very long time.
Oh,
Mismanagement of salary cap can put a club between.
It's nothing like it was days gone by. It's just which club had most money from the poker machines. You know, we had very little, Formula One stuff over here. All the sponsors and things. There was maybe, most of my football was played in just a jersey without anything on it at all except the number.
Yeah.
Not even your name. So it's changed dramatically, the game in that regard. And salary cap has had a huge impact on the way clubs operate.
Yeah, 100%. One of the last things I'll touch on with that development, and I guess this rare situation, Benji's on the headset in the coaches' boxes.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through? Oh, sorry. Well, just tell us why he's the one bringing the messages down.
Yeah, it's not just his messages, it's my messages as well, and David's, and Rob. But I want him on the comms to the sideline, and it'll either be to Chrissy Heinington who runs, or if Robbie's out at the moment, he won't mind me saying, or he probably will, he tore his calf, the old injury training.
Soft tissue injury. You're doing too many high-speed meters, Robbie.
Probably.
You have to sit this one out.
Yeah, staying up with the young blokes. Anyway, he'll either run the line or Chris. Chris does our state cup as well, and so depending on who's available, if we're away and Chris is with state cup down in Sydney, then Robbie does it. So anyway, the input goes through Benj. I want him to translate it down to them, and then it's pushed out. You won't see Wayne on earpiece either, nor Craig. Craig's not on it because he goes off so hard that the bench won't understand what to do, and he won't mind me saying that because I've said it to him a few times. There's many a guy on comms that he's had as he blows up, and then you translate it. Yeah, Craig's not very happy.
Yeah. I remember speaking to one of Dez's assistants.
Yeah,
I'm like, because you'd see him in the box, and he'd be like. Or I've sat in the box before and then gone, you don't tell us all these messages. And he's like, yeah, I know, because I have to filter them out.
Oh yeah,
because it's just almost.
Oh, there's some great stories. I could tell you a million stories about Sean McRae and when he used to run the line for me and do S&C down there as a school teacher with a sports science degree, to teach, and do everything in those days. And how we translate some of the messages, Coach goes, you just explode, and this and that, and say this and say, and he'll run out and he'll say, coaches are very happy. You better, that sort of thing, like translates it down.
There's an art to that, like knowing what he's saying, but what he means.
Exactly right. And so you need someone that's in the inner sanctum to do it. Run it, because he has to know what the terminology means, and shorten it to, I know what you're saying, I've been in your meetings during the week, so that's why it's important to have someone involved internally to run the messages.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to see Benji and Robbie serving their apprenticeship. Now, some may look at that as we're going to have to wait 2 years. But then it was interesting. I picked up when you said you're aiming for the 8.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's right.
No team would, and particularly 8 spots, and although there's an extra team now, 17, but no team surely starts a season not hoping to or striving to at least make the semi-finals. Now, 8 spots is in days gone by, it was top 4, then top 5, then it's gone, as the teams have obviously increased in numbers, we've gone to top 8. So you've got to, if you can't start the season hoping to do that, you're in trouble. The problem for most of us is that most of the teams have, well, when I say most, probably the teams at the bottom half of the ladder, say if you divided it in 2 at the moment, you'd say the bottom teams have one good team. You know, if you really want, with salary caps and other things.
Are you talking like a 17?
Yeah, they're saying, well, they've got a very good 17 and maybe 3 or 4, to say to about 22. But when you get injury and other things, those teams struggle, because the injury in that is solved by the fact of depth. If you've got depth in your club. Now, the stronger clubs who can stretch their salary cap more with third parties and so on, which is legal, I'm not talking about illegal here, are clubs that are and who put a lot of money into their reserve grade and stake, or the reserve grade state cup. I'm going back a bit there too, mate. So they've got depth is the way to cover injury. But even the Roosters, who are well known for us always being strong, are struggling at the moment because of depth and other things and injury to key people. So and it's not just that. There's so many things can upset a season. But I remember our 05 season, halfway through the year, we put top 4, right? And everyone laughed at us because we're a bit of a basket. I think the year that I took over, the Rugby League Week said the players' poll in the old, remember the Rugby League Week? The club you least wanted to play at, it was West Tigers, right? And so we had to recruit, so many, like I picked up Scotty Prince, who wasn't playing first grade up there at Brisbane at the time. He was in the State Cup. So many of them, Brett Hodgson's and Pato Richards and all of them, a lot of them were just barely playing first grade in and around their clubs, Elfords and so on. So, but we put them together with a bunch of good young blokes, but we struggled, and then because we had injury as well and other issues, and then halfway through the year, we got everybody on the field. I had my best team for the next half of the season, and we won 8 straight, right? And we lost a couple, and then I lost Paddy Richards for the grand final, but we put him together for it. But, you've got to have the luck of the gods with injuries in real terms. Like, for instance, our spine at the moment. If you lose one halfback, that's tough. But if you lose both, you're in trouble. And Roosters had that problem even last year a bit with injury. So that really just determines your fate, and there's nothing much you can do about it except blood some young bloke or experiment in the position and work hard together. But so they're the sort of things that control you somewhat, and your destination. But 8, you should all. I wouldn't say there'd be one club start the season and don't think they can make the 8, but that's because their best team could make it.
Yeah. If the stars align and you use 21 players throughout the season.
Those footy gods, they've got to be good. Yeah, suspensions, injury, off-field issues, all of that has a huge issue on your season. And they're the things you've got to learn to, as a coach and a senior administrator coach, you have to work around those things. Hopefully, I always used to dread long weekends that, police rang, so-and-so was such and such, they're the sort of things that you worry about. And I've had a few over the years, and many a club has. You
want to minimise those, but I guess...
Yeah. But you can't control everything, and you don't want to. They've got to have their own lives. But a nice little warning. I don't want a police call to the club over the next 3 days, boys. Right? I always remind them that doesn't always work. But although these days they're not the drinkers that they were years ago either. Like there's no Tuesday night hit the grog, that type of thing. They're very professional about what they do. The CBA, the Play Association, and CBA, and all the other issues that are running around in the game at the moment, they've got a very strong representative in that organisation. We never had that nowadays. The game controlled us.
Yeah. So in terms of striving for the 8, is that why the other week after you won by 50 points, you still had a blow up in the press conference.
Yeah, well,
is that
well,
is that to show that hey, we're not just going to celebrate the win? We've got bigger ambitions.
Course,
we want to
Jimmy. I mean,
striving for perfection, striving for.
You've been in the game
success.
too. You know that you don't expect to win by 60 on any given game, and you hope to God you don't get beat by 60. And sides have had that happen to them. You know, all of a sudden, you know, if they kick every goal, and we did 11 goals, all of a sudden, you know, that runs a ridiculous end. We got beat by over 60 last year by Roosters at the cricket ground, you know, and I got beat by 70 by Manly in 74. So I've been there. I understand sometimes those things happen. You can lose a couple of key players. You can be down to 13, down to 12 players on any given day. So many things can happen. So, but no, I keep the referees honest. They get a call from me every week. I talk about certain penalties and certain things, and I've had some apologies too. I've had referees put blokes in sin bin and on report and not be charged, right?
Yeah.
Which annoys me. And then you get the situation with Canberra where Brooksy gets a push in the back. Now you've got to be kidding me, right? So I'm not doing my job if I don't go and say something. But I don't. When I say I don't blow up that much. But people know when I'm not happy.
Yeah, but I guess the point is, you know, the Brooksy being pushed situation you can take, or like you go, oh, I understand why. But when you win by 50, do you know what I mean? People go, well, come on, mate, have a smart
Well, you know, they took the Offengowie try off me, you know, and then they tell me it is a try, you know. Now, all I'm saying is that if that's a close game, at that point of the game, it was a close game, and that can turn a game. You'd be surprised. You've been there, yeah. Little things like that can turn a game like that. Not if we were leading by 60 at the time, but we weren't. You know, that try was a try, and they've told me it was a try, and it was reviewed by the bunker, and still they said no try, and yet now they've telling me it was a try, right? So, so I know it's tough for them too, but I've got a job to do as have they. And I actually sent a tape to Dave Fairley about the forward pass. They still can't get the forward pass right. It's a YouTube tape. Look it up, forward pass rugby, right? And have a look at the tape. There's tapes. Don Ferner put one together with rugby years ago about if you're running and you're checked and you throw the pass, it will always look to be forward. Yeah. Because of the your momentum, right? I can be running forward and throw it over my head and it'll finish coming forward. It still looks forward. And when you put the lines on the field, I wish the game would put it up on the websites of the NRL and everyone have a look at it, including touch judges, who where it came out with the hands going back was the secret to and that goes back to many, many years ago when I rang Don Ferner. He was running the game at the time, at the Annesley part of the game, and Johnny Cartwright used to pass a ball around the corner, right? He put his hand out, and
go
flick it round the bloke.
Round the
guy
body.
Who got it used to get it in front, right? And he got penalised every time for it, right? And I said, Donnie, surely it's how it comes out of the hand, it's coming backwards. And he said, yeah. I said, well, so anyway, he put together a tape about it, and it's so clear that, but the problem is if it's thrown on a line and it finishes in front of the line, a long ball, and I get checked and throw it, that long ball, it'll always finish in front.
If I get hit on, I pass the ball, if I get hit.
On a line in particular, the touch judge, the crowd, and upstairs in the media boxes will say that's a forward pass.
Well, the ball can travel forward.
Of course it can.
It's allowed to travel forward.
Exactly right. See, people don't say
no. Well, and this is wrong. Yeah. It's a common misunderstanding that the ball can travel forward. Yeah, it's allowed to.
Everyone that listens to this today, go to YouTube, forward pass rugby.
Well, it's kind of like,
and it'll show you.
If you're on a train, and you throw something out the window,
that's right. Yeah.
When it hits the ground, it will be in line with you.
Yeah, that's right.
It's travelled forward.
That's right.
Same if you anyone that if you look at planes dropping bombs, the target's in front before they drop it.
Yeah.
Because it moves forward.
That's
but yeah,
right. With the momentum.
Straight. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a mathematical thing.
Yeah.
And
Physics, maths. Yeah.
Physics, maths. Yeah. But in saying that,
how do you solve it?
Well, people have got to understand that, if the player is checked when he throws the pass, chances are it'll be looking in front of him.
It will look.
Because if you pass and follow, right, it will always stay. And that's what I encourage my guys to do. Ricky Stewart, when he first came to grade, 1988, he used to throw the pass, the rugby thing, pass and fall back.
Yeah.
And he got picked up time and time again for forward pass. So I said, Rick, you got to pass and run forward. But if they check you in the tackle and you throw a long ball, like he used to throw a massive long ball, it will always end up in front of him from where he threw it. And everyone says, that's got to be forward. So Don, anyway, it came in then that it was always had to be how it came out of the hands. But people have forgotten that, and touchies have forgotten that. And at the moment, it's, although not really, I should get too tough on him, but you're going to be right in line with it. You've got to watch his hands, not the floating of the ball, and the line is the killer. If they throw it on a line, a 10-metre line, 20, 50-metre line, you're done. They'll go forward pass. And upstairs, even old-time football players call it, oh, that's a forward pass.
Well, I was going to say, mate, the commentators are half the problem. It's like, that's forward.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
You should go, well, it's fine.
Yeah, that's right.
It's move forward, but it's not a forward pass.
The other thing too is if it's flat, it's not forward.
Yeah.
Right. So, the nines who come out and play and get checked a bit, sometimes it looks, they'll fold back a touch because a marker will go and will play at them or something, and then, forward pass. Yeah. But, rugby are more attuned to, and everyone says, they allow forward passes. Rugby are more attuned to it than league referees are, or more so league, I won't say referees, I'll take that back, league fans and commentators and so on watching the game, and it's critical to get them right, isn't it? It's critical to get them right.
Well, the answer lies in technology, I believe, and as long as the decision can be made in real time without affecting the flow of the game, we don't want to be going, okay, can we just check that pass? And a physicist comes on and checks if it's
There's a guy
forward.
in England that contacted me, and I rang Graham Annesley about they're going to put a gyro in the ball, gyroscope type thing in the ball, which would read, but it just hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
I think he practiced. There are a couple of clubs in England using it in rugby who were trying to. He was trying to get the system. I don't know where it's up to at the moment, but I think Graham. Last time I spoke to Graham about it, he said, no, it's just it." In real time, trying to get it to happen and understand it is going to be too hard.
It's too hard at the moment.
But
at the moment. It's doable.
At some stage.
I think you'd need a smart field. So you'd need a number of sensors around the ground.
True.
A number of cameras that could take in all the angles.
Which automatically would ring a bell if it was a forward or something.
It would just literally be in the referee's ears and they call it on the run.
Straight away.
It's not going to be, it's not going to affect the flow of the game. It's going to get more of these decisions correct.
Yeah.
But I think with smart computers, quantum computers, things like that, this is way above my. I have a shallow understanding of it, but I think it's a problem that can be solved with technology. It's just going to take a lot of investment as well.
They're trying to get
bring
it sorted.
every ground up to speed.
Oh yeah.
And that's.
It's
going to cost. It's going to cost some money.
If they can put it in a ball and the ball will pick and it'll automatically pick it up. Somehow, as you say, with some.
But it would need
sensor.
some points of reference.
Probably do.
It would need. It wouldn't just need to be the ball. It would need other points of reference.
Yeah. Well, he had a system. He had a system where it was just going to be in the ball, and a gyroscope of some type was going to tell you whether or not it was, how it had left his hands or something. Anyway, it's like in days gone by. It's one of the big things in the game at the moment is the forward pass, right? Right or wrong, it can make or break you with a try or no try. In days gone by, it was the 10 metres or the 5 metres. It was a referee's judgment. That's why the lines came into the 10-metre lines, right? Because they were judging it poorly. As coaches, you were saying they weren't 5 metres, and then they'd go unofficially. Referees would do 8 and allow you to go, and then eventually went to 10 because the game over the years is always the balance between offence and defence. If you give too much credit to your offence, the game looks too poor. If you give too much credit to the defence, so they've moved it back. But in days gone by, your defence had to be back 5. Your offence had to be back 5. You had to start outside the 5 to get the ball. You could run in, but you had to start outside. So if you're a 7 standing flat and you hit the ball, you're inside the 5 in attack, believe it or not. And I played under that system.
Did you?
Yeah, in the 70s. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Disgraceful rule.
So you had to be 5 metres behind the play the ball?
Behind the play the ball, yeah. Right? So that's why you see those deep backlines in the old time football.
Yeah.
You know, because they weren't playing flat. But so they moved they took that rule out.
You know what? I've seen some of those games. And I'm thinking, why did no one think just like get flatter?
Yeah,
that's
right.
You know, like thinking,
that's right. Exactly.
They just become so institutionalized to playing this game. They're not they're not having the ability to think.
That's
but
right.
I didn't know
the
that.
First receiver had to be outside the 5, but you could start outside the 5 and receive it flat. But you had to start outside the 5.
Yeah, but how did you like?
I know. The referee would judge it, and eventually they weren't enforcing it a lot, but every now and then, I remember we lost a game against Canterbury at Belmore. I remember these things.
Ping being inside.
Ping, we scored a try on the post and he penalised us. I was captain, asked the referee, and he said he was inside the 5 when the ball was played. I said, what? I didn't even know the rule myself, and I was captain of the side in the 70s. But that rule then, when it came in, and after a while they kicked it back out again. So they moved the ball, the defensive line further back. An unofficial 8 used to be, and then they made it 10. And then to get it right, they put lines on the field. And that's why you judge. So if you're playing the ball a metre this side, it's a metre the other side. And so it's also put the pressure on the referees big time because they're inside the 10, so and you can see it from the sideline. So it works two ways. It helps the referee, but it doesn't. But it also criticises the referee if he gets it wrong. So and people can see it. But trying to get consistency in those things, like to play the ball, kicking at the ball, they took that out because it was too raking at the ball. Because that's an old rule from unlimited football.
Yes.
Right? You had to be able to win the ball. That's a ruck.
Yeah, contested ruck.
It's a contested ruck. Kick it or rake it. Same with scrums. They took it out because there's no need to have a proper scrum. Because in unlimited football, there's a need to have a scrum. It's like line-outs and rucks and scrummage in union. But so taking it out means you're going to get the ball. It's just putting the forwards in the spot for that moment, which gives the backs a one-on-one. That's all it's good for at the moment.
It's a great attacking opportunity.
Of course it is, yeah. And it works better.
In fact, the best.
Yeah, it is, in my opinion.
Attacking opportunity.
Of course it is. And now you're allowed to move it into the middle as well. You know,
I'm surprised more teams don't repack the scrum after conceding penalties.
Yeah,
there was a team. I can't remember who we were watching.
Because the second, if they give away again, if the opposition is an automatic sin bin.
Yeah, like what? I can't remember who we were watching. Maybe it was the Knights against the Broncos on the weekend, and the Knights had a scrum, Broncos offside.
Yeah,
and then they tapped. Yeah, they got the penalty and they tapped. It's like, no,
take the scrum.
Go to the scrum.
Take the scrum again.
Because it's the best opportunity.
And then they've got to stay on side because they risk an automatic.
And it's your best opportunity to attack.
Of course it is. Mind you, they're getting better and better with even midfield scrums. You're playing 3-3 or 4-2. Now they're going back to 20-metre scrums and going 6-0 to try and trying to mix it up because there's not
so
as
many variations. There's a couple of variations,
Yeah.
and when everything is normal, you just become accustomed. But then when you see a variation, it's like, hang on, why 2 and 4? What do we do? And a lot of coaches wouldn't even just split 3 and 3.
That's right.
And then you, as an attacking coach, can say they're only splitting 3 and 3. They're not even looking up and counting numbers.
That's right.
We'll go 4 and 2, and then if they match, let's go the 2 on 2.
Yeah.
I think the Bulldogs scored a 2 on 2.
You've got to be evolving all the time, even during a season, with that type of thing, because they learn to defend it. So that's why we reintroduced the runaround. We've seen it. Right?
They look like the forwards hitting it up. And
it's a distinct runaround where he can hold it and go or run around. But that's because sides defend the lead runner out the back, lead runner out the back. They do a lot of practice on that, but not too many do the runaround. So sometimes old plays can come back and be new. So little things like that can shake up a defence big time as well.
Because a lot of players don't know how to think.
No.
Because they just want to defend what they've already seen.
Yeah, yeah.
And like you
right.
say, if a team go, say from the base of a scrum, it's packed in the middle of the field and stacked 5 and 1.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of defenders would just go.
They do a 4 and 2 probably.
Well, coach never told me.
No. What to do?
Our rule is 3 and 3. Well,
right.
okay, we've got because a lot of teams have defensive rules or structure or systems,
even up and down the field. Like if they're having a scrum in their end, deep in their own territory, chances are they'll just hit up. So and you play 3 and 3 against any numbers. Because remember, your halfback's not attached to the scrum, so he goes, and the fullback will go the other way. Or whatever, but at the end of the day, though, it's near your own goal line that you get. If I have a scrumming you inside your 20, that's the danger one, and you've really got to match up there because you haven't got much room to drift back.
Yeah,
have you when you're on your own goal line?
I think anywhere up the field, even in deep yardage, a scrum, because those outside backs, they clock off.
Yeah.
Are they just going to hit it up, bang?
This is 2 old props talking about this.
I know, picking apart.
Pick apart the
It is. I do like looking at those scrum players.
Yeah.
That example of the Knights on the weekend. It's like no.
Well,
take that
set
opportunity.
pieces are a reboot. If you're talking today's language for your computer, it's a reboot because kids, you know what to do in a set piece.
Yeah.
Broken play is still an art to learn, and so many players. Benji talks about it. If you ask Mal Meninga, or go back to Peter Sterling and ask Mal Meninga, what's your attitude to the game by way of playing the game, and they'll say, look up, stop watching, play the ball. Mal played with his eyes. Peter Sterling made a famous statement when asked, how do you know what to do? He said, take my eyes off to play the ball. When to kick, where's the fullback? Where are the numbers? And Mal used to do it as well. Benji's big on it, and Robbie, as am I. It's about reading what's in front of you rather than putting a play on for the sake of putting a play on, because we've told when we get to here, this is the play to do. So it makes it very robotic for teams, whereas playing with your eyes is a little bit, it's not easy, and it's experience. It's probably 50 games or more before players start to get that 3 or 4 years of
situational
their career.
awareness.
Yeah.
So knowing the scoreboard, knowing the knowing the speed of the ruck.
Yeah.
Knowing when it's like knowing when to play it out the back versus play the short ball. And you just look for little tiny intricate detailed traits. Well, half a shoulder turn in can make the decision between short or out the back.
Yeah. Watching the player's feet rather than his eyes, the defender, as to whether he's turned or not turned. They're all things. Yeah, but in real terms, the game is getting very, very smart with that sort of thing. But a lot of teams are very much, the lead runner, and if you're doing it at speed and you come around on the gate, as they say, or there's various ways to do that to create the overlap. And the wingers are scoring on the corners, aren't they, all the time? So, and they're diving over because the corner post was taken out.
Incredible rule.
That was taken out too by that. If you don't know, Andrew Voss.
Did he? He brought in the.
Yeah, he talked about that because in the old days it was the circled black and white piece of cardboard,
Yeah.
And half the time they're leaning that way.
Yes.
If you know what I mean? They weren't up. If they got knocked, they broke at the bottom, right? So anyway, he pushed and pushed and pushed. It shouldn't be
out.
It shouldn't be out. Other than a ball hitting it is out.
Well, that's what they're there for, really.
Yeah,
is to differentiate between the ball going dead and the ball going.
Yeah, but it used to go over the top of them anyway, and you couldn't tell.
Yeah,
a touch had no idea. So Vossi, I'm pretty sure I'm right here. Vossi really pushed hard for it. Anyway, it's changed the game.
Oh, hasn't it?
Absolutely changed the game. There was a massive for the game that the wingers then could do that athletic dive around the pole and so on and so on. So it's become very popular for the wingers to be able to do that sort of thing. Yeah, we even practice it, right? The boys diving around that type of thing.
Yeah. Well,
on the mats and things like that.
It's a skill set.
Of course it is. Yeah.
And it makes a difference between...
Oh, hell. And it's spectacular to be able to watch it in slow motion, get it down. So, those sorts of things have changed the game big time. And so, as they say, if you're doing today what you did yesterday, you're already behind. So you've always got to continue to try and get ahead of the game, if not just stay up with it, So
Is there a direction that you think that the game should go, or is there any changes that you think could benefit the game?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about the 6 again. Although it failed miserably when it started because everyone just gave away a 6 again straight away on the first play, and then reset their defence and smashed you on the first play. No one's worried about the extra tackle because we're used to doing it in 20-minute restarts. So they've changed that rule, and so they didn't think about that, at the time. And that's what happens because coaches get around those things.
I was going to say, paid to do it. Well, it's your coaches to use the rules for a competitive advantage.
You bet, yeah. We're paid to do it. So, trapping the ball, you're not allowed to do it now in the scrum. Okay? Trapping the ball.
I don't like that rule. I think you should be able to trap.
Of course. I agree. I couldn't believe they took it out.
It's on the because it's actually...
It's still an international rule, I think. Although, are England doing it? I'm not sure.
I can't remember, but you're actually disadvantaging the attacking team.
Of course you are.
And it's one of the great opportunities to attack.
It is. Of course it is.
Why would you disadvantage
to keep them in? Once upon a time it was...
So if you break early, it's a penalty.
Yeah. Well,
so the answer to the problem, stop breaking early.
Yeah, that's right. As in rugby, the lock, the single man at the back of the scrum, not called a lock in their game, they're the 2 second rows, but the 8 right, at the back, and our lock used to be you could trap it, right? And then the scrum could move forward and you could keep it in the scrum. And that was in rugby league as well. But then they changed that to the last row of feet. Now, the last row is the 2 back rowers. So the back rower would trap it, right? But now they're first fair, because it was tougher in the old days because the scrum was fair income. And so the back rowers were pushing their backsides off to try and keep the scrum going forward and never thinking about going out of the scrum. You tried to push them off the ball and so on. But that's all gone. So they've tidied the game up. And it's like, as I said, raking at the ball, the Benny Elias, Ian Roberts type, kick the shins off you or your hand off you. That's why we used to drop the ball to play the ball. We used to knock the ball on when you played the ball in the old days. You actually dropped it and caught it with your foot, right? Because if you put it down on the ground like they do today,
they'd rake it off you.
They'd rake it off you or kick your hand. I've broken 2 fingers kicked in the hands with hard toe shoes. So like we used to play
the old metal toe caps.
Metal toe caps. You had to wear them. Toe caps, yeah. The boys can't believe even that there were shin pads worn by the front row because you got kicked to death. And if you didn't wear hard toe boots, if you didn't wear, it's like on a work site, a hard toe boot. The big French caps and that we used to wear, and it had a sprig on the front of it, a stud on the front of it was where you raked. Yeah. And if you put your hand down on the scrum, you get a boot on it, and they'd turn the boot on your hand and break your hand. Or they'd kick you with their boot. If you didn't have shin pads on, I tell you what, your shins, you knew about it. And you're allowed to rake and kick and do whatever in the scrums in the old days. That's why they were repacked so many times. So all of that is gone from today. But, again, just going back to why we started on that is just you got to go with the game, or stay ahead of the game.
Is there changes that you'd like to see that could affect the game positively? One thing that is really a pet hate of mine, and I'm sure coaches are doing it. So, do you remember when I think it was Cameron Smith and Melbourne? If there was a 2-man tackle and a dead ant, a player left in the ruck, a sleeper, they were just passing the ball into them. To get a penalty. Yeah. So they basically
They've taken that out.
They've taken that out. They've taken that out everywhere. Yeah. So now, but what I think that they basically said that's not in the spirit of the game. Now if you do that on purpose, you'll be penalised.
Yes, that's right.
But what I've seen now is what's happening is that third man is laying there. Yeah. And the dummy half has got to go around. That's right. Yeah. It is driving me insane. Why does the attack get disrupted? Yeah. And it's just, I'll play on. Teams are doing it on the goal line to stop them going a certain way.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand how it's allowed.
Well, it needs to be brought up by commentators like yourselves and so, because the coaches will just fold into doing it.
Well, I think some coaches are leaving a dead ant there to disrupt the attack, because you don't.
Well, if you've got to step
go
over, the fullback, the hooker can't pick it up and charge through.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. Mind you, it leaves one out of the line, but still on goal line, it's not a worry, because you don't have markers. You have one either side if you're right on goal line. So a bloke laying behind the ruck on the play the ball does interfere with the hooker trying to pick it up and have a clean run.
But I reckon if you were to analyse the game, look at those situations where that happens organically.
Yeah.
Do teams score the next play?
Yeah.
I'd say no. I'd say more often than not they don't.
Yeah, no, that's pretty fair call.
You know, like, and it's happening all the way up the field. I'm like, there's been a quick play the ball created, and it's stopped by that sleeper, that dead ant, whatever you want to call it, disrupting the ability for the dummy half to get out.
Yeah. No, it's a fair point.
Or even pass the ball to the first receiver.
Yeah.
Because he's like, he gets out and he's like, or he wants to fire it off the ground. And
it has to be off the ground.
He can't because
run with it. Yeah, that's
he can't because the play is in the way.
Right, okay.
It's driving me insane.
Start protesting, mate. We're doing it now.
What about you? Is there anything that you'd like to see change?
Look, there's always tweaks in the game, but you've got to be careful about making too many changes, because the international game, when I was Australian coach, we'd have a page of different rule interpretations taking aside to England. Remember you could run you could drop, the ball could be lost and you had a free play.
Yes.
Remember that free play thing?
Yes.
Well, that affected England in a test match one day. He thought he had a free play and kicked it, right? And then even if they got it, we used to come back and used to get it. He kicked the ball and we got it. And Australia just kept playing.
Yeah.
And they forgot. And that was in England, right? So we had different interpretations of local rules, you know. Days gone by, it was accepted without being a rule as such that if you introduced a rule to a domestic comp like Sydney or Australia did, and 3 years down the track it wasn't in the international rules, then it would be cut. And that was just an understanding. They experimented in the old days with different things, but it needed to be absorbed by the international board and the game itself. Because you can't have the two major countries, England and Australia, playing different rules.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But England tend to follow. They followed Australia. While I was there, they followed Australia in the Golden Point. They didn't have Golden Point over there, and followed Australia. I didn't agree with it. I was on the committee, and the committee disagreed with it. But the game put it in anyway, so I resigned because it was a waste of time. Because I don't believe in the Golden Point.
Why?
No, I believe that. I know they say it's like kissing your sister, but I believe in a draw. And it's endemic in England to believe in a draw because football is 1-1. They're happy about that. If you win 1-1 against a away team, I believe you get that 2-4-6-8 instead of 3 type the odd thing can make a break in a semi-final. Because often when you get to semi-finals, it's all about for and against and so on, and sides finishing on similar points. And I believe you should get there on, if you have a draw. Like for instance, if I were playing in the old days, we were playing Brisbane at Brisbane and we finished 18-all. I don't want to give them another 10 minutes to beat me. I think it's the old away game scenario. Some of the grounds, like some of the strong teams, if you
it's just that you think a tied game at 80 minutes should just be a point each.
Yeah. And I know everyone say, "Oh no, people want a result," so on and so on, because America.
Well, it's Americanization,
American thing. Play it, but. I believe if you're a pure, I'm looking at it from a pure football point of view. Maybe the game thinks that everyone wants a win because, as I said, it's like kissing your sister 1-1. But if I'm playing away and I get a point, and given the up ins and outs in the game with things like pushes and shoves and all sorts of things that go wrong with the referee, if you manage to get a point. Because the game shuts down to a field goal for the last 10 minutes of the game and it's 18-all or something.
Yeah.
Referee puts his whistle in his pocket, and I know they'll say they don't, but they do.
Of course they do.
Then when it gets to
they
golden
never
point,
penalise for offside for people charging down.
Unless it's a high shot, most of them, particularly in England, it has to be a foul before they'll blow the whistle in that sort of scenario. And it's what they say, the referee appointments people or bosses will say, let the game Let the teams win the game. Let the game play, not a marginal penalty.
Yeah, no one blows offside for being outside or inside the 10
if it's 18 for the last
field
5
goal.
minutes, it'll be like that, and then for the next 10 minutes, it's exactly the same.
Actually, St Helens won the league by a point in '96 before they went to the playoff system.
Yeah, before the playoff system. Yeah, well, in the old days here, it was,
they got. I don't know if they got a draw.
Wins. Yeah,
against. What did they get? No, they beat London Broncos. I think Wigan drew with London Broncos, and they St Helens.
Well, I'm sure
won by a point.
if you play a game and then you end up being the losing team from a field goal or a bad call or something like that, you feel let down. You'd be happy with the 1 point. You know, it's only that people. Now it's too late now.
But there's no, you can't go back.
I remember Desi supported me when they brought it in to the game, and I had a Raiders side, and he had a Manly side going poorly, and I had the Tigers. This was early in the Tigers system, it was about 03 or something around then. Must have been brought in, I think. And I remember saying that exact thing. If I've got Brisbane to 18 all after 80 minutes at Brisbane, I'm more than happy to take the point. Yeah, and then. You know, and Desi said, "Me too." Right?
Yeah.
So
I guess the argument would be that the TV it's a more valuable product, keeps more exciting, brings more excitement, more highlight, all that sort of palaver.
Yeah, and then when they brought it in, very first year, I'll give you a quick story. We're playing South at the at Allianz Stadium, or Sports Grounds they used to call it, and extra time, right? Okay, this is the first year it's run. In fact, I think it's nearly the first game of it. I might be wrong there, but I think it was very early in the season. And South beat us with a field goal that hit the post and bounced in. 6 minutes into the game, they forgot to stop the game at the 5 minute and turn around. And
they forgot half time.
They forgot half time, right? And we lost the game. I was squealing at the club to go to court over it or whatever. We wanted that point. Yeah, it was 18 or whatever the point. It was equal.
So it's the 5 minutes has passed. They're supposed to stop.
5 minutes supposed to stop and turn around. Yeah, and they didn't.
Oh my God! What an
so
oversight.
Those sorts of things. Yeah, I know. So that's why I was shitty about it.
Yeah,
at the time. But all those things. And I'm sure there's many aside that have said during Golden Point that they were dotted one way or another. The markers coming out,
they're offside
all the time. And then you get all sorts of issues that because the referees
blockers, illegal blockers.
Well, the state of origin game coming up, right? It's 1-0. I might be wrong, but generally they'll go 1-1 more times than they've gone 2-0, right? And that's because one team wants to win, the other team has to win. So there's the difference in motivation.
I like that.
But the team that has to win, when the referees sit down and the officials sit down, now I'm not saying here that they'll be biased, but I'm telling you now the 50-50s will not go against the team that has to win. It's just something you'll see. Those 50-50, a metre in front, they won't be penalised. Maybe so. It's got to be because the referee, and they'll put an experienced referee in because they're important. They don't want a dead rubber. They don't want it won after round 2, if possible. Now they'll say that's bullshit and blah blah blah. Yeah. But I've seen it over the years that the 50-50s will not go against the team that's already won the game, right? And do some figures for me. How many series? How many series have gone 2-0? And how many series have gone 1-1? And I think you'll find that it's 1-1 on a regular basis. And I'm not accusing anyone. Yeah, it's just human nature. It's like the field goal. It's like the 18-all scenario.
Yeah, they're not going to penalise.
They will not penalise either team. But when you've got a team that's already won up, the other team definitely, in my mind, will be will get a certain number of 50-50 calls. And the 50-50 calls come in offside and silly little things with hand in the ball or little things that they'll get a little bit more
of calls like legitimately are. Yeah. You asked 100 people, some would say that's a knock on.
Yeah.
And Well, sorry, 50 would say that's a knock on, 50 would say that's a rake.
Yeah, well, that's why the captain's challenge is important if you can get it right, because those things can be challenged, which is a good thing for the game, in my opinion. They used that in the 20s years ago and then lost it for a while, and now they've brought it back in. Is a good thing, except prop forwards challenge.
Well, you've got to have certain rules.
Or wingers.
You've got to have rules within the rues, right? Matt, what about the rest of the administration, the game itself? How do you rate the current administration?
Well, I think a couple of years ago they really started making major changes, time clocks on everything and so on and so on. And to a degree that's improved the game. A lot of those guys, though, haven't been out in the arena like you and I have about, time clock on a line dropout and time clocks on a scrum and so on to get another 10 seconds. And when they say at the end of the game it's that's another 2 or 3 minutes of game time. Yeah, well, fair enough. Rugby union are now looking at that even in England. Before I left they were talking about that because it's so slow, the set pieces. But they have 1 million set pieces. Line out, so they kick it out on first tackle, no worries, all that sort of thing from the 20, get a line out, walk to the line out, and so on and so on. So, and that's because their game is much bigger. They're much bigger athletes. They're not the up and back athletes.
They are some phenomenally
that's right.
big, powerful.
But they're not.
people.
They're going forward all day. They don't run backwards in the 10 metres and things like that. That's why a lot of the big rugby forwards have never made league in real terms. But so I don't know about some of the speed the game up. There was even talk about taking the scrum out. It's just going to be a tap, and so that'd be wrong.
But what about like the general administration, like where the game is going, like as a whole?
It seems to be, for me, I'm not been involved in that aspect too much. As a coach, I keep in my lane as best I can.
But you care about the game.
I do. Money-wise, it looks good. The CBA is a huge issue at the moment. The players are arguing. Look, the game went to Super League because it was a money issue. The game went to Super League because of money. We were if we were earning that as players. Like I had guys on $5,000, right, training part time, and
in '97,
$5,000. Kids playing for you for $5,000, right? Okay, in your squads, so $10,000, $5,000. They're part time. We weren't full time, right? And even though there was a salary cap came in '91, 1.2 million it was. Well, we got players on that at the moment running around the game, but it was that they were getting paid that much. So it was really it's like any worker dispute. The Super League offered us that much. Had we been getting that much, we wouldn't have jumped for that much. It wouldn't have changed.
Yeah.
Right? But because the game was not paying the athletes to the point, the game was getting to a point where, as a coach in Canberra, I was getting the guys to train of a day rather than a night because it's too bloody cold down there to train of a night. They used to train in goalkeeper's gloves. It got that cold. If wind blew from the south in the wintertime down there, mate, you could not hold onto a ball. It was that cold. So the guys were struggling. We wanted more time. The coaches were trying to take the game to another level. We needed more time with the players and so on. And then the money was just too good. But it was the best thing ever happened to the game, and people probably abused me for saying that. But a war occasionally is a good thing in relation to, something has to go wrong. There has to be an accident on a corner before they'll put a stop sign up or something. Like we react like that. Human beings, they're like that. We sit comfortable in where we are instead of moving forward. So that shook the game, mind you. The game had just bought cricket and put them in colours. Right, so don't tell me, like the Packers at the time bought cricket and then had rugby league and had a stranglehold on rugby league, right? They were basically that was theirs the offer for the year, take it or leave it. There was no one had, we didn't have, the situation with paid television and all the other things. So it's made the game really. The fact that they're full-time athletes now and the game's gone so far in front of where it was back then. And I love to go back and watch old games too, but I'm not kidding myself, Like, how slow did it look, It
almost looks like a different sport.
Yeah.
It literally
exactly
looks like...
right.
I've seen, like, games from the 80s.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like rugby league.
No.
In fact, you could make a case that, well, it is. It is a different sport.
It is, yeah. It's changed the game to be full-time. I remember when we did it in 97, that was when we sort of turned to Super League there, 96, 97. And I went to America to find out what to do for a week. Like 3 days a week, we had a rhythm of what we did, 2 or 3 hours a session, a captain's run. There was no GPS, no nothing, but we knew you had to keep the captain's run on the Saturday lighter than to play the next day. But it was all guess. But I went to America to study what the Americans did with gridiron in a week, how they planned their week, what did they do? We had no massively full-time staff or the gymnasium setups that you need today and all the other stuff. So, it was great to find those things out, and the game's evolved brilliantly now. The young athletes today are just blessed to be able to do something that they do for nothing, as we would have done. You play the game because you love it as a sport, but now they're doing something, getting paid really well.
Yeah. It's a fantastic life. I actually know there was a guy who coached me in my journey at St Helens. Dave Lyon, his name was. And he was part of the St Helens first team. And when it switched to full time, he said no.
Yeah.
Because he was like, in his coming towards the back end of his career.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't walk away from my job.
No, that's right. Well,
it's insane now, to think that
champ in England, the second division, champ and champ 1.
Yeah.
They'll play till they're 40 plus down there for 30,000 quid to add to their wage.
Yeah.
And enjoy it. It's part-time footy.
Yeah.
They knock around. It's not Super League.
It's kind of...
It can double their wage.
Yeah.
To play.
I do want to ask you about that a little bit later, because the promotion and relegation model, some players don't want to come up.
No.
They don't want to come up because they've got it. They know they've got it too good being part-time.
Yeah.
It's like, why would I want to get out of Div 1 or Division 2?
I worked in both over there. I worked full-time and then part-time with Widnes. And Widnes were in no position to go up anyway. They didn't have the financial, even though you get a little bit more for salary cap.
Yeah.
But see, salary cap in England, I don't know where it's at just right now, didn't cover your wages, didn't cover your salary cap. The grant.
The grant doesn't cover the wage. Yeah.
Whereas here, it's more. You get more than your grant. From the grant, you get more than you pay. So you've got money for this, that, and the other thing. So they're blessed here, but Super League struggles for that. But Champ was, the Champ is a few sponsors in the club and your crowd and so on is the thing.
Yeah,
and they get paid, and they, but they're working. Say he's a school teacher, you're working all week, and then you'll get 30 grand a year to play part time.
Yeah,
that can almost double their wage.
Happy days. Yeah.
Because wages in England, I was surprised about how 30 or 40,000 quid was a good wage, right? $60,000. Well, today over here, people, they won't work for that.
I know.
Certainly football players.
Well, it goes a lot further in the north of England, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
It sure does. Hey, we have digressed a little bit, but I want to...
Sorry, mate.
No. I enjoy that. I want to take you back, right, to 2005. And when you look at those pictures...
Yeah.
And with the benefit of hindsight, where did it fall apart? Is there anything that you do differently after that?
2005?
So after your 2005, you look at the pictures of the West Tigers lifting the trophy.
Yeah.
And then
things started to go backwards.
Yeah.
Well,
what with the benefit of hindsight? Because it interests me about how people, you get to the top and then it's like, well, how do you stay there? What would you?
Good point. We weren't a club.
That's the sort of what I'm getting at.
We won in 2005. The salary cap was 3.6 million, 3.6. We were operating on 3 because we owed the league money as a joint venture. 600 grand out of our grant was taken that year, right? And the next year, I believe, because they started as a franchise in 2000 or something, whatever it was, and money just the money that they got. I think it was plus 10 million, not a lot past that, but it just went, mate. The franchise, the two franchises between Balmain and West It was just gobbled up in lots of things, trying to win a premiership by buying a lot of players early at expensive money and so on. McCracken getting a Hummer, for instance, as a car. He asked for a car and they said yes. And then he said, I want a Hummer. Oh, yeah, that'll be fine. $70,000 or some stupid thing. So there was a lot of stupid things done. So the club didn't have a lot of money. We weren't wealthy at all in that era. We won it because of a brilliant group of young blokes and a bunch of veterans that we really, for a year, really put it together. But what happened, Paddy Richards that year said straight away he was going to England before the season started. We had a number of guys retire. Scotty Prince was the big loss for us. Scotty Prince was taken the next year by the new franchise in Gold Coast, right? Now, replace him. He won the Clive Churchill medal. He won us most of the semis. He was one of the key players with his kicking game and organising and his running game and so on. And he and Benji and Robbie and Brett Hodgson was just, a spine to kill for at club level. Smart, quick, and intelligent football players, not just athletes. So it broke down that way, and we had those older guys. Johnny Scando went off to England. Marky O'Neill retired. Ben Gallier and so on. Those guys were there at the right age, but at the age when they weren't going to go another decade. And I believe regularly, sport today in professional sports, hard to have a decade of being at the top. You get a window of opportunity. Parramatta had one last year. It'll be interesting to see if they get another opportunity this year. And if you get there, you've got to win it, right? You've got to win
that group together for a certain
because
period.
Sometimes it just doesn't happen. And the other thing is, other clubs will buy them all off you.
Yeah.
You see sides deteriorate because they get picked off by other clubs. Penrith have been picked off and picked off and picked off. Look at how many guys are playing at other clubs and playing brilliant football, representing. They're not old players, they're just paid a lot more money because that's when you get to a grand final, a guy earning, $50,000 a year is now offered $500,000 a year or something like that, something stupid, and then he can't help but move. So, your window of opportunity was there. We didn't resurface again, and we had to rebuild the club. Gareth Ellis and Lottie DeKiris and them come in later, and my younger guys, Benji and Robbie, were plus, they were in their late 20s. And we rebuilt and got 2 top 4 finishes in 10 and 11. Both games, I can tell you why we lost it and didn't make a grand final, v St George.
I think you forget that sometimes, don't you? The narrative of the Tigers is they won it in 2005 and they've been nowhere near since. But actually, we 2 seasons there.
Yeah, we were. We actually finished, we were regularly finishing 9th. I became famous for it. But it's a lot better than finishing last. You're in it at the back end of the year and you could control your own destiny by being 9th. If you're going to wait for 5 sides to lose every game or lose to get in, it's not going to happen. So we control our own destiny and we rebuilt the squad. But again, we had those 2 chances, missed it, and in 12 we finished 9th again and I got sacked. So because the expectation was we'd go that next level.
Is there anything you would have done differently after that?
Yeah, I'd have signed you and not Adam Blair. Remember?
I do remember.
Yeah, remember.
Very well.
When you met me? Yeah, well, other than your appointment, I wasn't sure because you hadn't played NRL. But you were at the touring side, remember?
Yeah,
we're down in Illawarra there somewhere, wasn't it? You came in, we had lunch, and it was you or Adam Blair, and I went to Adam Blair. And that I'd never got a chance to even coach Adam. In real terms, he was there in 13. I was punted out in 12, so I wouldn't have been able to coach anyway, mate. It's funny how these things work, isn't it? I've been trying to get that into the conversation and apologise to you, but because you end up proving you're the prop forward that we lost from the club, and that's the Toddy Payton. Toddy had that 13 playing. He was a 13 type ball player playing 8 and 10, and you were the same. You had that skill level of the inside ball, the outside ball, and just play at the line rather than just carry the ball all day, which there's nothing wrong with that because that's a props. I think if I did a YouTube on myself, and I've been tempted to occasionally, but when I look at all the footage I've got, which isn't much because the 70s at Penrith there wasn't much. We didn't make many TV games. Was take up, another take up. That was the sum total of a career. But as a prop, that's your role.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky enough to get an offload or get a bit cleverer, then so be it. But the job, and you had broken the mould. Lots of props, had started to play a little bit more football. Darryl Broman was a bit like that too when he played for me at Penrith in the early days. So just having that skill level is something that I like to recruit. So not just athletes, but football players. And if they happen to be an athlete, you got the package.
Yeah. Well, I was never going to make it as an athlete in terms of just banging through the front door. I know I needed skill acquisition.
Yeah.
And
what did you play as a kid? What position?
Bit of everything, but then probably edge back. I was hell bent on being an edge.
Yeah.
And then
as a kid,
lack of speed was.
I was a back. I was a back, 5'8" and centre, and I got to grade and they said, "You're too slow." And I said to David Ferner, David was a rugby union back, and I put him in the back row. I said, "You'll be quick for forwards, but not quick for backs." And grade does that. As I said, that's a funneling of all the best kids in the country at your age come into grade. You're going to find you've got a problem usually. No, there's no such thing as I've never coached nor seen a perfect game played.
No.
And I challenge any player to write down the day it was a perfect game.
It doesn't exist.
No, you can get close, but there's no such thing. And I've never coached one nor played one, nor have I seen one played or coached. I've seen some very good ones, But so, you're always learning as a coach and a player. And so, developing into if you come to grade and then all of a sudden they find a spot for you, it might be nothing like what you did when you were a kid. And that upsets boys a bit too,
Well, I've always thought I was wanted to be number 11.
Yeah. But I played 5'8" at school and everything, and that brought a little bit of passing skill and kicking skill to me. Not that the coach let me kick as a front rower. Darryl Broman got away with it. We used to have a few front row kickers in the 70s, and goal kickers too, for that matter.
Yes. I remember Lee Crooks back in England. He was a goal kicker.
That's it. Your skills you bring from a young guy can help the position.
Yeah.
If a coach is smart enough to see, he's got skills, let him use them. Yeah, Glenn Lazarus could kick a ball.
It's actually, in terms of developing young talent, you should switch positions and expose the athlete to other areas of the game.
Yeah, one is that. The other is change sides.
Yeah, change.
Centres who play right hand carry, go to the other side of the field and practice carrying two hands, practice carrying under your arm that's a non-dominant arm. Okay, so you can use the right hand fend. Young Jareem surprised the hell out of me the other night. He's very right-handed, and then he went left-handed and put a fend on Tino that sat him on his backside before he scored that try.
Yes. Oh God. Yeah.
So, I wrapped him for it because I want him to carry the ball in that hand if he's going to play that down that side of the field. But getting them. But I always ask players for their second position, right? Now, occasionally you get a Clemo who'll say prop and prop, right? But generally, most players, like if you're a centre, you've played wing, maybe you've played fullback. Stafford Toll, for instance, has played fullback all his career. He's playing centre at the moment, but a fullback is your third halfback. That's why I've selected him at 6.
Well, there is that ability to move, that adaptability.
Yeah.
I read a book on it called, I can't remember who it's by, but it's called Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialised World.
Yeah.
Because generalists who have had that exposure to different areas, then when it becomes specialised, you've got more of a skill set than actually early specialisation.
Yeah, that's a good point. I must read that book because I believe in it.
Yeah.
You've got guys that in a game you have to move someone. It's like I said about AJ Kapoor. He was a centre. He's played wing. He's played fullback. And I was looking for someone to play second row. And in the trial match against Canberra, I threw him into the second row. Stinking hot day, and he went really well.
Yeah,
because he's got the leg speed of to be quick for second row to make up the difference when you make a decision on a lead and then you've got to go hard. If you're a big guy, that's really difficult to do. But if you're a bit quicker, so he fills in now and helps stop the overlap, if you know what I mean. The fullback coming in all the time. So And then looking at players who can fill in another position is so important, because in a game it happens to you, and you might not have someone on the bench that can easily go on and play. So back rowers who can play up front is handy. These days the weight difference isn't a lot between the back rowers, the good ones, and the front rowers. There's the odd specialist front rower, but who's not quick enough for back row. But overall, just to have, like Appy plays 7 for Fiji.
Yeah.
Robbie Farah played 7 for me, right? Cameron Smith, I used to bring Cameron back to lock when I played Robbie in the Test match. He used to love doing that. Stays on the field, he's in the middle, but he didn't have to follow the ball you have to tackle like a middle, but he didn't have to chase the ball, and he created a second wind in his game if I had to keep him on the field as captain and leader of the team and so on. So you've got to have that ability to know what they're suitable and what side of the field they are comfortable playing. I can't stand, when I say I can't stand, it really disappoints me that when someone says, I'm right centre because I'm right hand carry, and he can't carry left hand. Or carry two hands for that matter. They tuck it straight away. They're not looking to play, are they? So, those sorts of skill levels should be, coaches should be in junior levels, should be coaching that big time. The problem is junior coaches often want to win a premiership, so if he's a good right centre, I'll leave him there. Give him a chance.
It goes back further than that to community football. Good friend of mine, Paul Wellens, who's the coach of St Helens now, he used to tell me a story of he got stopped in the street by a dad of a kid playing at under 10s. And this dad was like, "Yo, Paul, how you doing?" Blah blah blah. He said, "I've got this bit of an issue with my lad." He's like, "Oh, what's up?" And he's like, "Well, his team, he's a right centre if I've ever seen one, and he's playing, and his coach is playing him on the left." Well, I was just like,
so I'm saying generalist.
Well, he's 10.
Well, Billy Slater wasn't a fullback when he started. I think his first games were wing. He's played in different positions. So many players would tell you that they transitioned when they came to grade and became very, very good players there. I mean, when
different
I played,
position, different sides.
when I had the Test side, I had something like 4 fullbacks playing in the back line.
Yes,
with Hayne, Boyd, GI. And Billy, not a bad 4. But they were playing wings and centres.
When you're building what you're trying to achieve at the Tigers, what are you looking for? What's the key for personnel?
It's time.
We'll look at the
time to develop. And time to recruit. Now you're always recruiting, but time is such an important for the club generally to hold its nerve, right? And allow the kids to develop, because Penrith have done that. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, and Jamie Soward was the halfback there. And now Cleary's at the half, and he come through with Luai, who was his partner, and now they're dominating that team. They're the keys to that team. You can replace around them, and they've done that. But the keys are your spine.
So in terms of that,
so we need to be patient at our club.
But what's going to set the West Tigers apart from every other pathway system? What do you look for? Because you'll have a lot of say in that.
So we're different. And
you've done that before.
There's only 2 clubs doing this, and that's us and St George, because of the joint venture, right? So we've got a huge group of kids down in MacArthur area, right, all the way down, and they're getting bigger and bigger versions of numbers, because the airport's about to open down there shortly, and that southern strip heading all the way down to what goes into what they call Group 7 down there, Picton and further down is St George's area. That's where the growth area is. Balmain is another junior club. So we have 2. We have, say, Mats and Ball at Balmain. We have Mats and Ball at West, but we also have Darley and Johns, because it's 2 country teams. So we have sort of 16s, 17s, 18s and 19s sort of. So we've got 4 teams, average 25 players, and you can see how many kids we've got playing junior rep.
So you've got a lot of big volume.
Yes, and you've got to sort out the wheat from the chaff somewhat. But it's hard when they're young, because a kid can grow huge. He can be big and get caught up to. you just got to give them all an opportunity to get to about 19, and then you start really deciding rather than at 17 or 16, because the Islander boys are naturally bigger in many ways than the for want of a better way of doing it, the Caucasian kids. And so, sometimes that physical development when they're young is stronger than when they get older. So you've got so many things to consider, and then you're looking at positions, because in the juniors, if my recruitment guy says to me, well, we've got a great 6 and I've got a great 1, for instance, and I've got young Jareem, it'd have to be something special to beat this kid. And Jareem's got 10 years in front of him, touch wood. And we've got limited money to spend, and I say, look, I'm weak in this. I can see in 2 years' time our club's going to need, with retirements, another couple of types of players, right? Look for the best in the country for that, if you're possible, or best in our system anyway. Overall,
and then you just put time into them.
Sometimes you've got to do that as a first grade coach, but as a juniors, they just develop the kids and put good skills into them, discipline them, and good skills. That's the two primary things, I think, with kids.
So
be disciplined and have skill.
A lot of that, like passing, like a lot of that repetition.
Yeah.
Like a lot of repetition.
Oh, hell yeah.
I know there's old drills that Royce used to do with us, even as first graders.
Yeah,
I think sometimes
they all
kids
came
forget
from what we were doing here.
Yeah.
And it's repetitive. If you're a basketball player, you're bouncing a ball and you're taking one home with you. It's your Wilson. He's, you know what I mean.
I do.
You take him home. You're using it. You're bouncing him all day. Every kid should have a footy, and you got to be. These days, you have half footies. You can bounce off walls and things. There's a lot of stuff you can do with kids, where they skill levels. Because two things. When the women ask me about what the first thing you do with women who haven't got the background necessarily, although a lot of them play touch football and they're coming from that system now. Two things: pass and tackle. Get your head out of the way and tackle properly and pass. Because if you can't pass, if you're doing that in the pass, it's not good. Young Cunningham at Leeds, at St Helens, the daughter, she can throw a pass as good as any male I've ever seen from 9, right? And that clears three girls in defence straight away, with a good pass. So good passing, Ricky Stewart's passing game. Ricky bought the torpedo pass left and right. Royce, God love him, he passed right. He could pass right, then he'd turn his back to pass left.
Well,
Greg Alexander used to do the same thing.
Kieran Cunningham at 9, he used to do the reverse spin out of dummy half, left to right.
Yeah, spin it the other way.
He couldn't spin it traditional way. Right?
So teaching them,
he could right to left, but not
the other way. It was a reverse spin.
Yeah.
I've seen it. And I've seen I remember Big Nolan and Druka, who was a winger, centre for us in Canberra. When he'd go to dummy half on the edge after the centre had run, he would spin it inside out.
Yeah.
And Ricky had to stand almost me to you before he could catch it, because he couldn't throw it very far. But the skill levels and getting your head out of the way in the tackle. Defensive systems and offensive systems are all come later. But as a fundamental skill, to get your shoulder into the tackle and get your head out of the way, right, and be able to pass the ball. They're the two fundamentals, I believe. Not everyone's going to be a kicker of the ball. Like in football, you've got to be a kicker. Everyone's got to be able to do a left and right foot kick. You don't have to do that in rugby league. But everyone passes the ball or should be able to, even if it's just short passes, and have got to be able to make a one-on-one tackle.
Yeah.
So, and kids should be able to do the same thing.
Yeah, so just drilling that into the kids is nothing special about it.
And the thing about it though, mate, is to make it interesting. You can't just do the same drill forever. Royce would have a book of 100 at least, I think, that we used to do. You've got to everything in ball work, everything's passing anyway. But you've got to really have specific where you do a lot of it. The catch pass in one motion, the short ball elbows in, the long ball hands out. Teaching them those things, but giving them variations to it so it's competitive. Then you make a game out of it and so on. That's the way you interest senior footballers, let alone kids. If they're playing a game and the winners are going to have to do a lap, no lap, and the losers do a lap or something, they get competitive.
Yeah.
You little little things like that make a huge difference to your training levels. They go up
Well,
when you get
without
competitive.
even knowing you.
Whenever you get into a game, you compete. That's why we love the game, to compete. So your skill training should be competitive. Yeah.
Is there anything around the culture that you need to put into these kids? Obviously, the generation coming through now is very different.
We had an interesting one last year. 17s went through undefeated, and these are the kids that are coming through now for us. But in the last game, there was the siren went, but the referee didn't blow the whistle, and there was a bit of a stoush, right? And a couple of kids ran on the field thinking the siren had gone. Ended up in a bit of a push and shove. And so we had two, if not three, I can't remember now, but it was a couple at least, missed the grand final, right? Missed the grand final because they was sim, and that's like 17-year-olds, 18-year-old men, testosterone's the biggest issue. Yeah, it is. Like once upon a time, if in the old days, if you got punched, you didn't punch back. You waited till you got a shot and you took a shot at him in a scrum or something. These days it just turns into an all-in brawl. So that's why they had to stop the punching as a rule, and now it's a push-a-thon, right? But at the kids' levels, they don't see that. They'll go at it, right? If they get suspended, they get suspended. And getting the young men to control themselves and for the coaches to control themselves on the sideline, not abusing the touchy as he runs past and abusing the kids and abusing the opposition and so on. Junior league, like, if you go to junior league, it's scary some days with the way the parents get competitive because they're in there playing, because their son's in there, So that's a real issue, is to teach them the disciplines of being up just on the field, let alone off the field. But, your culture is about what the players do when the boss is away. If I'm not there, how do the players do when they go to a function, to a promo, or they're having a beer or something? That's where culture is found or not found. And that's why you want the players, the older blokes have got to teach the younger guys. I always say, be consistent in treating everybody differently. If you're a 30-year-old veteran and I'm a 19-year-old rookie, you're treated different to me. I expect more from you than the rookie. In the same token, though, I want you to be schooled in him as well, that internal. Older players, like Benji Marshall's first autograph was and a crown on top. This was when he was 18, when he did his first autograph. Mark O'Neill and Scano, I think it was, and then got him, come here, see that? Change that. Right? And he did. Yeah, he did. Because he was super positive in himself, And the senior blokes pulled his tail. In the old days, they'd pull your tail too, like, hey, settle down, So a bit of that internally is very, very important. But externally, you've got to set the standards. But again, I believe a 30-year-old and a 19-year-old, you're a 10-year veteran. If you said to me, Coach, I'm okay to play this week, and we're all like that about it, but I'm okay, I trust you. If a 19-year-old says it, no, you're not playing. You don't know. You don't know what hurt and injured. There's a difference, isn't there, between hurt and injured. Okay? Some people can play injured. You can. I know you. I've seen you do it. And Royce was even huge at it. If it was a dislocated thumb, so what? Strap it to a bloody finger or whatever, Like play, I've seen guys play with Ricky in the late 80s, play with a needle that long. That's the needle length up under his where, into his pelvis with that they used to call it the groin injury, the popular groin injury of the time. I can't think of the name of it, but a lot of guys were getting it. And now they got surgery to solve it. But he was getting local injections to kill the pain that just make your feet curl, So playing injured and playing hurt is different. So they've all got to know that, and you develop that over what I call the 100-game cycle, which is 5 years, 20 games a year. You've been to hospital, you've been injured, you've been selected, you've been dropped, you've won a game closely, you've lost a game narrowly. All those things happen to you, and that's what we call experience, isn't it? And so so the time you get to that level, I expect more from you.
It's not treating everybody the same.
No.
Yeah, we don't treat everyone the same. Yeah.
No. They're different. It's not my saying. I think it was an American coach who had the Steelers, I think, once, and he said it. My philosophy is be consistent and treating everybody differently. And when you think about it, it's right.
Based off
their experience levels, their age, and what you expect
your
from
previous
people.
experiences and interactions with them.
We made more money in that one game than we had in probably 6 games at Leichhardt. So I'm shoulder charging with the ball, but I'm not allowed to shoulder charge without the ball. Seems a bit stupid to me. Well, Wayne said, "I trust you, Sheensy, to come up with something like that."
Sheensy, it's been an absolute. Sheens, your coach, Tim Sheens.
Whatever, not shithead.
So you're developing Benji and Robbie as coaches now,
right?
But let's have a look at some of the coaches that you've already come from your tree.
Mm-hmm.
Laurie Daly, Craig Bellamy, Mal Meninga, Ricky Stewart, Kevin Walters, Todd Payton, Michael Maguire, Paul Green, Royce Simmons.
I don't lay claim to any of them. I think they're all stupid for going into coaching.